The advertised monthly meeting of the Lower Moreland Township Board of Commissioners, September 13th, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public participation on agenda items will be taken after each item is discussed and also at the very end for non-agenda items. For Internal Affairs Committee, under item A, review and consider minutes of August 9th, 2022. Any of the commissioners have any corrections or comments? Hearing none, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of August 9th, 2022. Second. It is in motion and second to approve the minutes of August 9th, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Under item B, review and consider bill list 2022 September. Any of the commissioners have any comments?
I have a question or two.
Uh-huh.
I had it written down on my notebook and I forgot it. So forgive me. The LEEDA training, that is related to the second dog that you're getting.
The LEADA training, the LEADA training is a supervisory training for some of our supervisors.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it's not related to the dogs.
No.
Okay, but there are other items in here that are related to the dog. I'm sorry, you paid a pen something?
Yes, University of Pennsylvania Dog Working Group is the training facility and also the vendor for whom we purchased the new canine door from.
That's coming out of township funds?
No, all the funds for the canine unit has either been donated or through grants. So Thor was fully paid for by a grant of $10,000, $5,000 from the Philadelphia American Kennel Club and $5,000 from AKC Reunite, which is a national program that increase canines throughout the United States. And all the funding for the equipment has either been received through the Aswan Foundation, fundraising drives that we've done, in addition to other grant funding. It's 100% paid for by outside funds.
So we just see the expenses here, they're coming out of the township and the township has already received these grants?
Yes.
Great, great. Thank you so much. I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah.
You know, it's as we, had requested. So I'm sure you'll talk about the second dog when you have your time up here, correct? And I think that was it. That was just a matter of, ins and outs.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the public for the listed bill list? Hearing none, I would like to make a motion to approve the September 2022 bill list as described.
Second.
There's been motion and second to approve the September 2022 bill list. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, passed. Under item C, review and consider resolution establishing 2023 MMOs for the pension plans. Manager Hoffman, would you like to enlighten us where we stand with that?
Yes, I can certainly do that. So this is one of those items that is how the township knows that it is the month of September. So every year at this time, in accordance with Act 205, the board is obligated to consider 3 resolutions. So the first 2 are in relation to the police pension plan. So there's resolution number 22-33. That one has to do with whether or not the plan valuation requires officers to make contributions into the pension plan. And based off of that valuation, once again in 2023, no contributions will be necessary. Then the second resolution related to the police pension plan is number 22-34. This is the one that sets the monetary value of the MMO, which that acronym stands for minimum municipal obligation. So with our actuary, we go through the financial calculation that ultimately determines what amount of money needs to go into the plan to keep it solvent, essentially. And part of that calculation considers that there's a valuation done of the plan effective January 1st of every odd year. So this one would use the valuation as of 1/1/21, and as of that date, the assets exceed the present value of the future benefits. So all of that said, while there would have, the calculation would have yielded approximately $140,000 of an MMO, in order to maximize the state aid that we get, the MMO will actually be $0 for 2023. So that's a number that gets incorporated into the upcoming 2023 budget, and thankfully is $0. Just as a kind of word of warning about that, so practically what we see through 2022 is that market activity has been less than ideal. The plan has regular obligations to making monthly pension payments to retired officers. So we would expect when the next valuation is done, and when we go to do the MMOs again in the future, that we would expect an MMO to come back. And some amount of money would be obligated as part of the 2024 budget. But again, in working with the actuary, the premise is to maximize the state aid that we receive to offset these kind of real-time expenses that we have. So that's something that we would recommend that we deal with for the 2024 budget when that comes due. The third resolution is in relation to the non-uniformed employee pension plan. So compared to police officers who receive a defined benefit pension, all other township employees receive a defined contribution, which functions more like a traditional 401k. So for that calculation, and this is resolution number 22-35, we come up with a estimated 2023 base payroll. For the majority of employees in that plan, we know what that number is going to be because they are members of collective bargaining units and the contracts are settled for 2023. But then all non-contract employees also participate in this plan. So we come up with what we would expect the base payroll to be for 2023. The contribution rate is at a rate of 9.25% of base salary, and that yields a minimum municipal obligation of $195,738. So resolution number 22-35 acknowledges that that would be the expected pension contribution for those employees. And ultimately then we'll, based off of the actual salaries of 2023, that will realize the actual expense. So that number of $195,738 will be incorporated into the 2023 budget when that is prepared in the coming months.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
In the coming month. In the 22-34, it says the normal cost percentage for the police pension plan is 16.9%. And what does that mean?
So that 16.9% number is a standard number that when I receive the kind of worksheet to do this, that number comes from the actuary. To better define that, I would have to ask the actuary.
So they're assuming that that's the cost percentage?
I would have to ask the actuary where that number comes from.
Okay, because I mean, that's pretty high expense depending on what kind of expenses. So I don't know. Yeah, and we have this in this. These are managed by the trust.
So the township has a separate police pension fund that the fund manager is BNY Mellon and has been, I think, since about 1992.
Okay. And do we know what the cost percentage is?
So I think that this is in relation to I'll have to get an answer to this.
Okay.
That cost is not what we're paying BNY Mellon to manage the fund investment.
Thank you.
They are paid, so based off of the breakdown of active versus passive investments.
Okay.
And over the years, we have taken on more passive investments. that are following the S&P 500 rather than paying somebody more money to try to do better than that. Because historically, many of the professionally managed funds wouldn't yield us anything more. The cost to BNY Mellon to manage those passive plans on our behalf is less. So I think we have that down to about approximately between 45 and 50 basis points. So 0.5 something.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's what I was hoping you'd say. I don't know what any of this means, so I had to ask. I'm glad I'm not alone.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 22-33, confirming no member contributions for the police pension plan for 2022.
Second.
It has been motioned and second to approve resolution number 22-33. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Just to clarify that is for 2024. My apologies if I sabotaged you with a bad. If I did. That's on me. Bad motion.
Okay, so as stated, motion to approve resolution number 22-34, establishing the 2022 minimum municipal obligation for the police pension plan as 0.
That's 2023 also.
Yes, it is. My apologies. I updated last year's memo and all of those carried over the same.
So for 22-34 for 2023.
Second.
It's been motioned to approve resolution number 22-34. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 22-35, establishing the 2023 minimum municipal obligation for non-uniform employee pension plan at $195,738. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and second to approve resolution number 22-35. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Under item D, review and consider bank account investment policy. System Manager Lee, do you want to tackle that one? Why that's coming before the board tonight?
Sure. So almost everyone's heard, interest rates are going up. The township has a healthy reserve. We are accruing interest in our primary concentration account with TD Bank. There are other banks offering competitive rates for minimal to almost no risk for short periods of time with very little minimum requirements. So we decided that it probably is in the best interest of the township to venture out and see what these other options can offer. Univest Bank, as of early August, their rates that they provided were pretty low actually back in August. It was 1.5 for a 3-month CD up to 2.15 for a 24-month CD. At the end of August, they had already jumped by 0.5% each, and I'm expecting that by this week, it's probably up a little bit more than that. We have reached out to several different banks that gave different rates. Univest gave us reasonable rates with minimum requirements, $500, and we're hoping that we can start some kind of a rotation program with short turnaround periods, gather the interest that we can accrue, and have a rolling basis of utilizing our reserve funds to continually break in at the maximum rates as possible. So that's what's before you. This is following the investment policy that the township had adopted several years ago. It's minimal risk to the township, and I think it's a good choice for financial benefit.
Great, thanks for that explanation. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Then I would like to make a motion to authorize the township manager as the signer to open a deposit relationship with Univest Bank as described.
Second.
It has been motioned and second to authorize the township manager to open the relationship with Univest Bank as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under item E, review and consider 2023 budget schedule. Manager Hoffman, could you state for the board and the public what dates and times we have lined up?
Yes, I can. So each fall, we do 3 budget meetings. The first one is with the 3 community groups which receive public funding. So that meeting is proposed for Thursday, October 6th at 6 p.m. And then we will do the 2 budget sessions where we review the entirety of the proposed budget. So the first one being Tuesday, October 25th at 5 p.m. And then the second being Tuesday, November 1st, also at 5 p.m. So we wanted to make sure that those dates were agreeable to everyone on the board.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Great, well then we will advertise the meetings for those dates, and based off of that October 25th meeting, that then sets up my timing to get the budget book completed by Friday, October 21st. So I will be a Lower Moreland resident until that date.
Any questions from the public about the budget sessions?
Do you want to explain who the community groups are?
Sure. The 3 groups which receive real estate tax dollars authorized by the Board of Commissioners are the Huntington Valley Library, the Huntington Valley Fire Company, and then the Bernathen Fire Company, both with a contribution on the fire service side, but more significantly on the ambulance service side.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Under item F, public hearing Comcast franchise agreement. So basically negotiations for the renewal of our Comcast franchise agreement commenced early in the year, and it's coming to an end. We have an agreement, and by rule, we have to have like a public hearing. I have to read this description before the board and the public about the agreement. Good evening. This is a public hearing of the Board of Commissioners regarding cable franchise renewal for the Township of Lower Moreland. This public hearing is held pursuant to Section 626 of the Federal Cable Act, which sets forth the process for franchise renewal. The Township's current franchise with Comcast is within the normal industry renewal window, and the Township is beginning the process of renewing the franchise. This public hearing is part of the preliminary portion of franchise renewal, in which the Township receives the cable operator's past performance and identifies the Township's future cable-related community needs. As such, part of this public hearing, we invite comments from any citizens who wish to speak regarding either or both of the aforementioned subjects. Franchise renewal is the best opportunity for municipalities to assert their rights with respect to their cable operator and to obtain important benefits in return for granting the cable operator the right to use their public rights of way. These benefits include a state-of-the-art cable system now and in the future, strong customer service standards, free service to community facilities, better reporting requirements from the cable operators, maximize franchise fees, public, educational, and governmental channels if desired, head capital support if desired, legal protections of the rights of way, and better mechanisms to enforce the franchise agreement. These are just some of the potential benefits available through franchise renewal. Citizens may address these items or any other cable-related items that are important to them. We are now open for hearing on the citizens to comment. Thank you. Any comments from the board first?
We still have a problem with the PICO putting up new poles and the transfers not being done from the old poles. And that's happening all over the place in my ward. There was one leaning, we have a leaning tower on Turwood that my folks are complaining about with good reason. And then my friend on, I'm sorry, right around the corner from my house. I'll get it back to you. But is that somewhere addressed in here?
So We can pass that on just kind of as something that is like an operational interest. The question would be whether or not, say with Pico having installed their new poles and moved their service. If Comcast has not yet moved their service, then I think I can report that back to Cohen Law Group, and that can be something that they push. Comcast, compared to both Pico and Verizon, I don't believe that Comcast owns any of the poles themselves. So I think they're kind of one additional step removed from the actual end or like the solution to this issue. But if there is anything that Comcast has done to not move their service, I can at least encourage Cohen to bring that up as part of the negotiation.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's also Verizon, but we need both of them to cooperate and move their stuff because, you know, I have one family with a 15-foot square footage in their front and 2 poles. And that's, you know, that's not right. They shouldn't have to have that. It's just a quality of life issue that is important.
So if Comcast is a part of having caused that, then we can raise that.
They are.
Okay, good.
Also, this says free community facilities, free services to community facilities. Do we get any free services from Comcast?
Yes, so the TV service at any of the township-owned facilities is, I guess, the main benefit that is included. Anything that requires more than a standard connection, we do pay for. But we do have that free service between here, the police department, public works, the library.
I'm sure the library had to add on, probably the police department as well had to add on.
Yes, and any of the internet connections themselves all have to be beyond a basic level at this point. But so it essentially is the cable service.
Okay, so it's like basic.
Yes,
Well,
not even,
used
it's
to call
standard
it-
definition,
Okay.
hurts the eyes to watch.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, now we'll open up this public hearing to the public. Any questions from the public?
Thank you.
Is he unmuted?
Yeah, he's unmuted, but we can't hear him. I tested our audio, so it works. No, his audio is not working.
It's Comcast.
Who is it?
Manu Chopra, we can't hear you.
So if we're unable to address the audio, if you would want to submit any comments to me via email, my email address is first initial C for Chris, last name Hoffman @lowermoreland.org. If you submit your comments, I can pass them on to our attorney who's representing us for this matter.
I think he's speaking. Manu, we can't hear you. Is your sound not on your side? You have to unmute yourself.
I'll leave him on because he's not.
Any other public comment? And again, anything can be emailed to the township manager afterwards, so we can get that on the record. No action required on our part for others than
Just
that.
closing the hearing.
Okay, then I'd like to close this public hearing. Thank you. Under item G, administration report, Manager Hoffman, do you have anything else to add for tonight's meeting?
Sure. So just 2 items that I wanted to report on. The first was that originally, when we had put together the draft of this agenda, and I think we had even done public notice, we had received a request for the subdivision plan at 3262 Huntington Pike. And they were going to be coming in with 2 4-lot concepts, which were each reduced by 1 lot from the original 5-lot sketch plan that they presented to the board a few months back. I was informed by the applicant's attorney that they did not wish to pursue that sketch plan in front of the board this evening. So that was why we ultimately removed that from the agenda. And then their attorney also advised that their next intended step is to submit a preliminary final plan to the board for a 3-lot concept. So once that's received, we'll have that go through our standard review process. They'll have a planning commission meeting. They'll ultimately come to the board. But as a staff, we had advised that, and I think the feedback was heard from the board, that the fewest number of lots that would make that project work for them is what was more generally agreeable. So we will review with that in mind. So we would expect that, I would say, in the coming months. And then the second item, which Steve was also maybe going to report on, we did receive the draft of our NPDES permit for the Chapel Hill treatment plant. So the thing that we were waiting anxiously to find out was whether or not any of the limits in that permit for the water that is ultimately discharged into a tributary of the Southampton Creek were going to be lowered or changed and ultimately require some sort of capital upgrade within our treatment process. So I'm happy to report that we do not have any kind of reduced levels that would require a major capital project. However, they are adding other, I guess, reporting requirements as part of the quarterly or monthly testing that we do for the wastewater at that plant. So we'll end up, I guess, now that we've received the draft permit, we will post that, which I think allows for a comment period, and then we'll provide any comments back to DEP, and then they'll ultimately issue us the permit. And then I guess with the effective date of the permit, we'll end up having to then meet those reporting requirements. So those would be items I wanted to use.
Any questions from the board for the manager? Questions?
That gentleman up there has.
Yeah. I was gonna say, anybody that's on Zoom that would like to make a public comment, if you can just hit the raise your hand button on your Zoom app, or if you're on your phone, you can dial *9 and that will raise your hand. And then I will send you an invite to unmute yourself during a public comment period.
Is there anybody?
I don't see any hands raised right now.
Okay, thank you. Assistant Manager Lee, do you have anything to update the board with tonight?
Sure. Last month, the board gave authorization to issue an RFP for a township auditor. That was issued, and the proposals are due tomorrow. We've received 1 so far. Our current auditors, Birdball, but we've been with them for a long time. Nothing wrong with them. Just seeing what's out there and seeing what the going rates are, just to make sure that we're getting the right service for the price. So once that's in, and staff will be reviewing it, that'll be before we get the October meeting. And then the second payment for the COVID-19, the ARPA funds from the federal government, that actually arrived this week. I just got notice of it.
In gold or check?
It comes, it's $686,000 that's direct deposit into our account. We do have a separate account already set up for that. That's accruing interest separately, but a little bit higher than what we get in our regular account. Again, following the investment policy of the township, making sure it's minimal risk, but also accruing interest on that. So yeah, so that was great news today.
And maybe just since we do have a greater audience, and just the receipt of $600 and something thousand is not something that happens here every day. So when we found out that ultimately Lower Moreland was going to be granted about $1.3 million through the federal ARPA program, which is the COVID relief aid, one of the eligible expense types was for sanitary sewer projects. So knowing that we have an aging system, it relies very significantly on pump stations to move sewage throughout the township to either get to a point of discharge in Philadelphia or ultimately into the township's much smaller treatment plant. The scale of capital projects we know are pending for that. The board allocated that $1.3 million for that purpose. So there will be a series of capital projects that we'll be recommending hopefully very soon for upgrades to pump stations and conveyance systems and other issues that have presented themselves in the sewer system.
And there's lots of great community events coming up in October, but I will leave that to the community events liaison, Commissioner KURITZ, to report on that during her term. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Assistant Manager Lee. I know our tax collector's in the building, but is she on the call?
She is.
Okay. Under item H, tax collectors report, and if we have our elected tax collector alive on the call, let her speak.
So
I think she was talking.
might be with the
Yeah.
taxpayer.
I'll go see if somebody's out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's a runner. He can do that for his exercise. So anybody know any jokes? They have to be clean. They can't be political.
Rudely ended the conversation, but Jane will be right.
Hello, everyone.
Before-
We have evening hours tonight to collect the school taxes. So we have lots of visitors coming in, and that's why the door is banging. But as far as the township and county taxes are concerned, the actual township collection is at 95.34%. The face collections, which is just the total amount billed, we're at 96.98%. For the trash, the total actual collections is 96.26%, and the face trash is 97.96%. We're about 0.5% higher collection this year than last year. And the face balance for taxes remaining to be paid in 2022 is $173,600. And for the trash, the remaining balance is $29,750. And reminder letters for the continued outstanding taxes will be sent the end of October, beginning of November, so that they have the opportunity to pay prior to December 31st for collection. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public for our elected tax collector? Okay, thanks, Ms. Sun.
Thank you.
And I would like to request that the tax collector's report be accepted as submitted. Under item I, my liaison reports, I continue attending the Board of School Directors bi-monthly meetings virtually. And there's been no Civil Service Commission meeting since our last board meeting. And that completes the Internal Affairs Committee. The chair now recognizes Commissioner Kearns, Chair of the Community Development Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. First item on my agenda is review and consider conditional use decision, Lower Moreland Township School District Bus Garage, Red Line Road. It's number 2203. And we all have an adjudication order in our tablets, which Solicitor Rice will review.
Sure. Last month, the board conducted a conditional use hearing, which is a type of a zoning hearing for an applicant. In this case, the applicant was the school district. The school district application proposed that first student, the company that buses students in the district, be able to also provide private charters to groups, going to events outside of the school district. So since that's a private activity, that's not really a school district activity. The zoning ordinance required a conditional use hearing. The district was here last month. The council hears tonight. And there was testimony presented. And as a result of that, the board has in front of them a written adjudication or a decision which would approve the proposed charter service to be run by first student at the existing bus facility. No new construction on the site, but this provides revenue to the first student and to the school district, as I understand it. The two conditions that are proposed for the board in terms of approving this would be yeah, I have it. One condition would be that there'd be no pickup or drop off of passengers utilizing the private bus charter at the property or any other district property. So the customers of the charter service wouldn't be coming to the school district property, whether at the high school, the elementary school, the middle school, parking their car and hopping on the bus to go to the Phillies game or wherever, the Eagles game or wherever they might be going. So there's no need for any additional parking, and that's a prohibition. The second is that the district would mitigate There's an existing stormwater runoff issue from the site. And that condition would be in a form and manner to be approved by the township engineer. I think the township and the township engineer believes that may just be a matter of putting a curb along the driveway so that that water is directed where it should go instead of where it currently goes. So that's a minor stormwater issue. They're the only two conditions. The board has the proposed decision in front of them. And it's before the board for approval tonight. And I don't know, counsel for the school districts here, I'm assuming you don't have any questions because you haven't seen this written decision yet, but you now know what the conditions are. So does the board have any questions about this? It's a very low impact proposal here for the site. Is there any public comment or questions regarding this?
The only question that I have is, they're not gonna then bring in other vehicles, right? They're just gonna use the existing vehicles.
Yes.
We're not gonna find them with a party bus with a stripper pole on it or anything like that.
The existing fleet. No additional. Not that that's what the existing fleet looks like. They're old.
Yellow school bus,
Forget the other
Right.
ones.
No.
Okay, great.
no poles permitted.
You know, I mean,
Stated in here.
it was.
Yeah, that they
but
weren't gonna
I-
add any additional.
I just wanted to clarify, right?
Any other board questions
Thank
or public questions, public comment? Sorry.
Yeah, Phil Morgan, Ward 1, Barrett Avenue. Will there be drinking on the buses? Alcoholic beverage, I don't think it should be. I was a bus driver once. If there's smell of booze on a bus afterwards, when a bus driver's picking up kids, that's not the right thing to have.
I think that might be illegal to do that.
Yeah.
So we're hoping they don't break the law, but
It's illegal to do that?
You should not have an open container on the bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we will also they will clean the buses.
Or your
after- Or your car. Well, and they will clean the buses after every use. Just, you know, on-
I'm not talking about the driver, I'm talking about the passengers who are not responsible for driving.
that's, the behavior of the customers of the charter service. That's going to be regulated by first, like any business. Township's not involved in that part of it. Any other questions? Before the board for a vote?
Okay, so I'm glad to make a motion to grant the conditional use application of Lower Moreland School District, subject to the conditions as stated by Solicitor Rice this evening.
Second.
We finished? I'm sorry. We finished?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I know.
Because there's
I always ask.
a whole order thing. I didn't know if you wanted to read that, so.
Well, I said as stated.
Okay, good.
Which is 1 and 2, which
Perfect.
that no pickup or drop off of passengers utilizing the bus charter is permitted.
Okay, motion and second.
Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on my agenda is the building officials report. We had 48 permits that were issued for August, 42 residential and 6 commercial. We had 565 permits that were issued year to date and 690 permits that were issued last year to date. Under inspections by type, which is building, electrical, fire protection, mechanical, plumbing, right-of-way, stormwater management, zoning, we had 187 inspections by type, 145 residential and 34 commercial. We had 60 complaint violation, and there's notices that are issued and they give certain days to comply. I always note this, that a lot more calls come in and visits that are required, and it's a collaborative effort between the township, Lower Moreland Police Department, sometimes when needed, and our code enforcement. And we always thank them for all their hard work. It's a lot more that goes on besides what's listed. And use and occupancy certificates issued for August were 3 business use and occupancies and 17 construction use and occupancy certificates were issued. Does anyone have any questions regarding the reports in our tablets? Does anyone in the public have any questions regarding a code issue or anything that you have going on your board that might be a concern? Okay, anybody on Zoom, EJ?
I do not see.
Okay, I will accept all these reports as submitted. Next is my liaison report. My positions are the Planning Commission and Community Events. So for the Planning Commission, to date, there is no meeting expected to take place for September so far. Under community events, as EJ said, we have a lot going on in October. It's very exciting. The Township Open House in coordination with the Huntington Valley Fire Company, or Fire Prevention Day. It was moved from October 15th to October 8th. And it always takes place 11 to 3 right here. And it's a great time for families. Movie night will take place. That's coming back after a few year lapse due to COVID. The library, the Huntington Valley Library runs that so graciously for us. That will take place Saturday, October 15th at the library parking lot. The movie is Bad Guys, and it starts at dusk when it's dark enough to see the screen. So everyone, bring your kids out for that. And the trunk or treat that was very successful last year is scheduled for Saturday, October 22nd at the Public Works site. And the time is 6 to 8:30. And the rain date for that, in case we get a thunderstorm or any hazardous weather, is Saturday, October 29th. And we also will be having a fall tree planting, but it's Public Works usually takes care of that for us in the fall, and we have a community tree planting in the spring. So Director Warner will be reviewing the fall tree planting and discussing where he feels trees are needed and why. And we usually, same thing every year, order bare trees from Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. So that concludes my agenda for this evening. If anyone has any questions
Sure.
regarding any of our
I have a
events.
question. Are you doing the contest for Halloween this year? The best,
Decoration.
I don't know. I reached out to, we could, we have time.
It's
Ruth, I
supposed
didn't
to-
ask you about that. You probably know what I didn't ask, of course. So forgive me
I
about
don't
that.
want to do it. I
If
bought all
If
my
you want to
stuff.
do it,
I
we could do
received a
that.
lot of
Yeah, we could do that.
good feedback. So if
Yeah.
your committee wants to
Okay.
still do that, would be great. Thank you.
I will ask the volunteers, and I know Ruth loves it. She even gave me some cool decorations. So we can do that. And we also, with the chief, we also collect canned goods. So chief, I was gonna reach out if you wanna have the canned good collection there. All into doing that. Okay, are there any other questions from the public regarding any of these events?
Yeah,
Sure.
with all the food issues that people are having right now, could we incorporate a food drive into any of these events?
Well, the chief at our Halloween event, at our Halloween trunk or treat drive-by, we collected canned goods last year.
Yeah, I know.
And I mean, that's like a canned good food drive. If you have any other ideas of a different type of food drive, I'm open to any ideas. I think it's always wonderful.
PBA usually does a Thanksgiving drive as well.
Yeah.
For Phil Abundance, so we'll be doing that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
And we'll promote that too for you, chief. So, but that, and any other questions from anyone? from the
Commissioner,
public?
I was just going to mention, unfortunately, the township newsletter did go out, and as you corrected the date of the fire company open house, it had the wrong date. So please take note that it's actually the Saturday before the published date that's in the newsletter. It was
Yes.
just changed.
Well, historically, we would have it at the end of fire prevention, but, respect for our fire company, whatever's good for them. EJ
We
and I
will,
discussed
we'll
it.
be, yeah, we'll be,
We'll let them make
we
the
already,
call.
yeah, it's already on our website and
Mhm.
Facebook. We will be blasting it a lot. And it'll be in the newsletter, the electronic newsletter at the end of the month. And, yeah, the newsletters that we still have, they've all been corrected manually. So we'll be,
Yeah.
we'll make sure. And then, unfortunately, there always is someone, but we have the movie night that night that they get still
I
do.
And EJ and Leah have so graciously gotten the ball rolling, and it's really just a continuation of the same event, and just gave some slight input.
Right, but we'll
So
make
we've
sure
been-
we blast that as humanly possible to make sure we reach as many
And
people.
the fire company will have out their
Yeah.
signage that goes out along the pike, so I think hopefully it'll become abundantly clear that the
So-
8th is the day.
It's a week earlier. Got it.
A week earlier, and the chief, I'm sure, will also help us with his site. Okay, any other questions? Okay, that concludes my agenda items for this evening. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Kern. The chair now recognizes Commissioner Odner, Chair of the Ordinance Committee.
Thank you. My first item is item M, review and consider non-discrimination ordinance. Back in July, we had agreed to table this until September 13th so that the members of the board could do a little more research, get more feedback prior to voting on this. The ordinance has been advertised as prescribed by law for that meeting. In the past couple of days, we've discovered that the LGBTQ plus community, the original purpose, as my understanding of this ordinance, was that the LGBTQ plus community was covered under federal law from discrimination. It was not covered under state law. We have since learned in the past few days that it appears that the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office is now taking discrimination complaints from the LGBTQ plus community as a sex-based offense. So what we're attempting to do now is figure out, where they are in the process of accepting those claims, if they will in fact be covered as sex-based claims. So now we have to look back and figure out if we need this in Lower Moreland, or will it be covered at the state level? So I think that, in light of what we have found out as far as the potential coverage from the Attorney General's office, is whether or not we want to table this for further investigation.
Just the other thing that's happened, and this is something that apparently has been going on the last 3 or 4 months, is the state agency is also establishing a policy that would accept these types of claims under sexual discrimination. There's a published rule, which I don't think any of us were aware of until the last week or two. Chris and I both have reached out to the state agency representative, Carl Somerson. And this topic never came up from his agency, and that was January, February this year, I guess, when we spoke to him. So there's something going on at the state level. Chris Hoffman has provided information to all of us regarding that. The Attorney General has this posted on his website. He's accepting claims. So, that's always been the impetus for local ordinances, is because the state doesn't regulate it. Now, the question is the state regulating it? And how are they regulating it? And have they accepted any claims? We don't know at this point. So anyway, that's the state of the state's regulation of this. But that was always with the municipalities that have adopted this type of an ordinance and have established, however they've dealt with it. It's because the state law does not cover LGBTQ population specifically. Now, on the federal level, I think the federal level, the courts have, I think the U.S. Supreme Court has looked at Title VII as these claims would fall under as sex-based discrimination. So that's the issue that's in front of the board tonight for some discussion, determination, where they want to go with something at the local level that may or may not be necessary. Since there may be another remedy at this point at the state level.
Any questions or comments from the board?
This may surprise you, but I had something to say. This has been my baby. You guys know that. And I feel that our township needs to make a stand on this, whether or not the state does some cockamamie thing or not. Because even if the state HRC starts accepting those, that can stop at any point in time, depending on the administration, the state administration. Am I wrong, Commissioner? I mean, Solicitor Rice?
Well,
If, let's say,
the attorney,
Doug Mastriano becomes governor and he says, oh, no, I don't want to do that.
well, the attorney, well, he doesn't enact legislation, so, but if the attorney general changed, the policy could change.
Right.
If the people that are appointed to the State Human Rights Commission change, that could change. You
And
know,
they can change.
I mean, I'm not that familiar with, I'm assuming the governor appoints them. I don't know what the terms are on the groups, but yeah, it could change, you know, and you could address it if it changes, but just for today, where this is at, I mean, that's what's going on, that there's been a change. And I don't know how long the Attorney General's has had this posted on his website. I think it's probably been this year. And the HRC, state agency, is going through a rulemaking process to redefine some of the definitions. And I don't know how far along that is. I don't think that's finalized yet, but
I think they got a couple of comments so far.
there's public comment on that. So
Public comment, as well as that the independent regulatory review commission, they issued a letter on June 8th, which is essentially a summary of the public comment received, which is a combination of state legislators and probably just some general Pennsylvania residents. And then they provide this letter back to the state HRC with guidance for some additional things to consider. So I think the ball is back in the state HRC's court to respond to that letter.
But there's no timeline, there's no deadline, there's no.
So I guess at this point, having kind of sorted through all of this today, I guess depending on what the board's action would be, staff could reach out to the state to see kind of what is the status of that response and see if there's any feedback that they would have that would be informative to the board's process if you wanted us to do that.
Well, my feeling is whether or not they do that, this is something that we should do in Lower Moreland. Just because the state this week decides that they're going to treat the LGBTQ plus community correctly, doesn't mean that next week they're going to do that. And we, as representatives of the people of Lower Moreland, need to be responsive to our people's needs. I've heard, I tried to talk to all of you. I missed one, but probably because I can't talk to people much in the summer, and other people are freer in the summer. But what I've heard a lot of things, virtue signaling, which to me, doesn't mean anything, except that, as the board of a township, we should be signaling virtue. We should be trying to do what's best for our people and making laws that make our township a better place. I've heard that there is no discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community here in Lower Moreland. I reached out to some people, and I have a couple of letters that they've asked me to read for them because they were unable to be here tonight, and there may be other people on there that are here tonight. The bottom line is the LGBTQ plus community is not a protected class in Pennsylvania, actually even in the federal government, although there have been some Supreme Court rulings in their favor that have allowed gay marriage, but nowhere. And I have a woman on from the she'll speak later. She's a lawyer with the Abington Human Rights Commission, and she can explain better what that means. Like, I'm just an accountant. I don't really understand all of that stuff, but I do understand the pain that people are feeling. And that is our job, I believe, is to make this community whole, healthy, and accepting. Is it okay if I read some of these? Are we gonna open it to comments from the township also?
Commissioner, it's okay.
Well, I know we will have public comment. The
Mhm.
question is whether we want to do letters. The last time I agreed to a letter, ended up being about a 3-page single space.
Oh, no.
Essay.
Bad.
We were all here for quite some time. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't read that. So no, these are really like short.
sure.
The first one is, my name is Nidhi Ram, and I am a current student in Lower Moreland High School. I urge the board to vote in favor of the non-discrimination ordinance because I have clearly observed rampant LGBTQ+ discrimination in the district community. This ordinance will be a significant help to queer people in the community who are actively being discriminated against on a regular basis. That was one. So
That was a student?
He is a current student, yes. But he says that he has faced discrimination in both the school district and the community. The next one is from Gabrielle Janowski. I am a Lower Moreland alum, currently living in Lower Moreland and a member of the LGBTQ+ community. I have personally experienced discrimination both in and outside of school due to my sexual orientation. Implementing this ordinance will ensure that discrimination does not impact my ability to be employed and housed and ensure I can engage with other public services our community offers. As an active voter in Ward 6, I expect my elected representatives to advocate for me and our community's best interest. Vote yes to this ordinance to ensure that I and others like me can succeed in our community. The last one is from Anonymous. I graduated from Lower Moreland High School after spending a total of 5 years in this district and another gap year before college. During my time in high school as a student, I felt constantly uncomfortable at the amount of vile and hateful things I hear my friends say about homosexuals, causing me to feel unsafe. Lower Moreland prides itself on its inclusivity, yet I feel more comfortable as an LGBTQ+ person when I lived in rural Pennsylvania than I did in my time living in Lower Moreland Township. As an active voter in Ward 1, that's mine, who is registered Republican, it is my expectation that I will have my representatives work in my best interest. Thank you. The last one is a couple pages, but there's a couple people in it. So, my name is Mitch Marty. In February of this year, alongside peers Nidhi Ram and Julia Yavis, I wrote and helped pass a proposal to integrate student representation on the school board. Having spent all my 13 years of schooling in the Lower Moreland School District, I feel qualified to speak on my experience as an LGBTQ+ person in this community. Growing up in Lower Moreland as a queer person was challenging. I did not have it as bad as some of my peers. When my brother was in this district just 10 years ago, he recalls the violent bullying of a gay classmate. He says it's a wonder that the kid made it out alive. Well, but it's better than that, I'm sure that I know you all are. When I was in 7th grade, I too remember witnessing the violent bullying of a classmate in the year below me, a transgender boy. I recognize that these are school-related incidents, but I posit to you that the students who are perpetuating these incidents have parents who most likely share their opinions. Because that is what, I mean, a 7th grader is 13 years old. They're learning it from home. That's my firm belief. The young man's testimony is not included in today's meeting because he's no longer a member of the Lower Moreland community. Due to inadequate protections in this township, he was forced to transfer schools. When I began openly discussing my sexuality with others, sometime around the age of 12 or 13, I began feeling ostracized. My friends from elementary school with whom I spent almost every single day were no longer my friends. In fear of rejection by association, I began sitting alone and I stopped participating in class. I felt uncomfortable changing in the locker room and began wearing gym clothes to school. I was called slurs by my classmates over social media, not just over direct messaging, but publicly as well. A peer I had known since the first grade approached me with a couple of minutes left in honors biology. This is in her their sophomore year, excuse me. I had my earbuds in and I was standing silently by the door. Yet he felt the need to approach me and say, being gay is unnatural. Being in earbuds, I could not catch the rest. By that point, however, I had grown some thick skin and used some colorful language encouraging him to leave me alone. The teacher, having heard the whole exchange, reprimanded the young person who is making this complaint, though I had done nothing to initiate the encounter. Now I feel fighting fire with fire is ultimately fruitless. Over the years, I found myself feeling grossly unhappy despite any academic or extracurricular successes. I found myself pursuing greater things, positions of leadership in high school to prove myself worthy, yet I was still unhappy. I struggled deeply with the rejection of my peers. Upon receiving my diploma, I felt I did not have much to say to anyone. I was just happy to be done. I didn't need to sacrifice this part of myself anymore. For once, upon leaving, I felt a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, there's a space for me in this world. The discrimination I've experienced is not limited to school. I've witnessed the use of homophobic slurs and abusive language in professional settings, including at my former workplaces, which many of you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, frequent. I've witnessed community members in their outrage post offensive social media content targeting their own LGBTQ+ neighbors. This isn't to say they're all to blame. It is to say that we can do better. I am now a freshman at Temple University's College of Education. I have chosen to become an educator because of my experiences and to honor the people in Lower Moreland, and they name some names. I can give this to you to see afterwards of formative members who made me want to keep going. This community is small, but we have a lot of power. It is our responsibility to protect one another, even if we have not experienced it ourselves. As an active voter in Ward 4, I would like to see the best interests of myself and my LGBTQ+ neighbors represented as you all make your decision today. I urge the ladies and gentlemen of this board to support the experience of myself and other queer folk in the Lower Moreland community and vote in favor of a non-discrimination ordinance. It wasn't self-interest that I started this. I wanted us to have a human relations commission. You know, like so many of our neighbors, Abington, Jenkintown, Cheltenham, Upper Moreland, Hatboro, you know, they all have human relations commissions. And I recognize that that doesn't mean we have to monkey see, monkey do, but there's a reason for that. And the reason is our LGBTQ community, no matter what the State Human Relations Commission does, will not receive protected status unless the legislature passes it. And we all know that the legislature has no interest in doing so. They've made that clear time and time again. They haven't even allowed the bill out of committee, and bills have been proposed. Here today, I will tell you, and I got permission to say this, that my own daughter is now characterizing herself as queer. And that brings us home. I've seen her ignored, excluded, looked past. And it's in high school, just after she came out, in the prom. And all her friends went together and they didn't tell her because they didn't want to be guilty of queerness by association. We could do better. We should do better. We are better than that. The only way for us to protect this community is for us to pass our own legislation and make it a part of our community. Bring everyone together. No matter what that HRC does, we still need this here because the state is not going to pass this legislation. That is the bottom line. That is my bottom line. Commissioner KURITZ, I know, sent out to a lot of you some facts and figures and different things, and they were wonderful. I hope you all had a chance to read them. Look them over. They describe the state of the world for this community, for all discriminated communities. Of late, the incidence of hate has increased significantly. And we need to step up and increase our involvement as well. I will pass the baton. When you get to public participation, I ask that you speak to Joanne Kleiner first. She is a lawyer in the Human Relations Commission. And she has some perspective on some of the rules and regulations that you've all heard about that have been brought up today.
Thank you, Ruth. I do think that, first I want to say that everything you just mentioned is very powerful. I think that I certainly speak for myself, and I think everyone else up here, that we all, find that behavior abhorrent, and that we all stand against it. I also think that this is a specific ordinance in front of us. I think it's important that people understand what the ordinance says and what we have authority over. Discrimination under this ordinance is a discriminatory act with respect to or involving a transaction related to employment, public accommodations, publicly offered commercial property, or housing accommodations. So the stuff that was happening, bullying and things like that, there's nothing that we can do in this ordinance to stop that. I will stand with you against it and fight it with you. But we have to, I think it's important that when people comment, I hope that they can focus their comments on the ordinance that we are deciding on. So if you can, the other stuff, as awful as it is, there's nothing we can do in this, with this ordinance to stop that. We can't stop somebody through this ordinance from, being a bully in high school. The school has their own resources for that, but I do think that it's important that we focus on the actual ordinance before us. Do any other board members have any comments?
Chris, does that mean that you would be open to a Human Relations Commission here in Moreland?
I didn't say that. I said that we have an ordinance in front of us, and I hope that the comments can focus on that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was something that y'all might consider, since that is what I originally wanted. This ordinance is at best a tepid variance of that I thought if no one would have a problem with, because it is so limited. But I mean, I'll turn this down for a Human Relations Commission any day of the week.
And I think the other question that just came up to us and literally today is whether or not, and this is where I think that what we want John to hopefully look into is, if they are now accepting these claims, does our ordinance then become redundant. Because if there is state protection, that would trump us. Anyway, we fall under the state protection if it's there. Is that?
But there wouldn't be any preemption. I mean, you can have state laws and local ordinances to work hand in hand. As long as they don't conflict. And the way this proposed ordinance was put together is basically to provide for a mediation service, not a commission that would issue complaints and hold hearings and impose penalties. This sets up a mediator, and you would hope that any complaints that would come in could be mediated at the local level. And I think the state would love to see complaints mediated at the local level and take it off their plate. But at the end of the day in this, if it doesn't get resolved, it goes to the state. I mean, that's where it's going to end up anyway. All the ordinances that, I've looked at all require the municipalities when they get a complaint to also let the state know that there's been a complaint filed at the local level. So there's some tracking that goes on with everybody else that has adopted these types of regulations. But this particular ordinance doesn't set up a commission. It sets up a mediation process to try to resolve it at the local level. And if it doesn't get resolved, that individual can file suit, can go to the state level, can go to the federal level, but it does provide for the municipality to move this along to the state commission. But it wouldn't be there's a lot of state, I'll give you an example, fireworks. So we've been round and around with fireworks regulations from the state. We now have a new set of regulations from the state. The local municipalities can implement things that maybe are a little bit more strict than what the state has put out. And we've done that under the prior law. Now we have to relook at it again because the state just decided they wanted to have a more strict state law. So, but you can, as long as there's no specific preemption where the state says, Lower Moreland, you can't legislate in this area. There's only 3 areas that there's preemption in the state: banking, liquor, and mining. They're like the total preemption. But anything else, most municipalities can step in and legislate, sometimes more stringently, unless the state has specifically said you can't do that. So there wouldn't be any conflict if the state, is accepting it. And something that comes through the Lower Moreland would end up at the state eventually anyway if it doesn't get resolved. But I don't know what the state is doing with complaints that they now say they're accepting. I mean, it's just something that really has come to our attention in the last month. The rule that's been published by the state commission, that's not final. Whether that's successful or not, we don't know, but it looks to me like the Attorney General's clearly accepting complaints and characterizing them as sex discrimination complaints under existing law.
But we know we will have a different Attorney General in January because that guy is running for governor.
Solicitor, I have a
So I don't
question.
know what's gonna-
With all this evolving, that's the whole premise here is, do we want you to take a further look into this for us? Would this, if something is passed at the state level, state and federal or higher local governments or local than us, would that trump what we want to put into place here locally? Because, I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of research. I believe I've had a lot of communication with everyone on the board, and I think, collaboration, and we all believe in fairness, equality, peace, and love of our neighbors and our community. We all love everyone. It's evident. But if this is put into place, currently what's happening is all different municipalities are putting in all different ordinances. So, and I do like the ordinance that you crafted for us. It fits our town and what our needs are, but you know, it's not uniform across, you know, across, say, the county or the state. So if the Human Relations Commission, if the higher the state puts something into place, how does, you know, would they come back to all of us as local governments and say, hey, this is in place for now? And
I mean, it's sort of the same question Chris asked. It's, you know, if the state included specifically in the state act protection for LGBTQ, you know, then someone could go right to the state, clearly, under that and go through the state process. It would not wipe out a local ordinance because it's just a different remedy at the local level, unless that state act says Lower Moreland, Upper Moreland, Abington, you can't legislate in this area anymore because we've adopted a new state law. But I doubt if the state would do that. They would just add that additional specific class that could bring a complaint under state law. It would not trump, it wouldn't preempt any local ordinances. You know, there'd be a choice of remedies to a person that felt as if they needed to file a complaint. You know, so, you know, and that's not that unusual where there's local ordinances and then there's state ordinances and regulations. And again, as long as it's not a preemption issue and they don't conflict, there's other types of preemption, and I don't want to do a legal seminar here, but you have conflict preemption and you have like total, but I doubt that the state would specifically say that, you know, if they got to the point where they're going to amend this.
do you know, according to your research, like how many of these claims or have come from local governments or approximate or estimate in Montgomery County? Or
Yeah, I haven't,
state of Pennsylvania?
you know, and this is just a handful of municipalities and solicitors. I looked at this 4 or 5 years ago, and I looked at it more recently. And most municipalities, and I hope somebody proves me wrong, have had little or no complaints. You know, one of the issues with the standard ordinance that everybody else adopted is it sets up a hearing process where someone files a complaint, and then let's say it's a business, the business has to answer the complaint. And then if it gets answered, there's some attempt at mediation, but ultimately it could end up in front of a appointed commission to make some determination about whether or not the complaint is legitimate. And then this is a township commission, that township commission then has the opportunity to penalize that business or that person or that, you know, whatever the situation is. So, and I don't know of any where it's gone that far. I just know that different municipalities I've spoken to and solicitors that have this, there's been very, very few that have advanced to that, or that have even been filed. But, and a lot of that may be confidential. Those ordinances set up sort of an investigation process that's probably not subject to the right to know law. If they have hearings, I have a question about those commission hearings. Are they open to the public? Or are they closed? That actually might scare off people from filing complaints because they have to now go to a public hearing and lay it all out in front of a commission. So I'm not sure that's the best remedy in a local ordinance.
So even if we put this ordinance, or we're talking about putting an ordinance like this into place, and, you know, we do this either now or in the future, after we look into this deeper, something happens and there's someone feels something happened to them, they might not even come to us, they might just go to the state.
Well, according to the Attorney General, they
It's
can
up
do- they can
to
do
them,
that.
right?
Yeah, they can do that now.
How they like.
They can do that. They can do that.
And John, written your ordinance, if they choose to do that, then they would not be eligible for the mediation due to the multiple filing.
Correct, yeah, they would go to the state. I mean, this would set up a choice of, which path to go to. The state may be more confidential than coming to a local township building or a local township ethics commission or a HRC hearing. I don't know, like I said, the townships and the individuals I've spoken to that drafted these ordinances. I spoke to the solicitor at State College 3 or 4 years ago, and I was told they haven't had a hearing yet. And they've had an ordinance in the books for a while. So I don't know how they handle, serious complaints, don't get resolved, don't go to the state. Are they acting, as a hearing board? Are they opening those hearings to the public? Are they penalizing people? I mean, some of those ordinances are have some significant penalties. But, it's a, whether to move forward or not, it's really a policy issue for the 6 of you to decide whether to move forward with this, whether to not move forward with it, whether to hold it in abeyance. Looking at what the state is now attempting to do. So they're your options at this point.
I mean, we have to recognize also that this law is very limited. It doesn't force anyone to go through anything, so it's not an undue burden on the taxpayer. And it also is completely free to the township. Because I have actually given I think it was like 12-page curriculum vitae CD, another form of a resume for a woman named Erica Goldblatt Hyatt, excuse me, stuttering. And she has a lot of experience as a mediator, and she has offered to be our mediator under this for free. So, I see this as a win-win for our community. There's just no downside. It doesn't put any burden on anyone, and it helps to make the LGBTQ plus community feel welcome. And that to me is extremely important.
Commissioner Sirkin, do you want to open this up to?
I was just going to make one comment myself that what Commissioner House had outlined just to me was just horrific bullying that's been going on school district property. We have multiple school directors here today. I didn't know if they wanted to say anything during public comment about some of the comments or allegations that Commissioner House had brought up. We have the school district solicitor here. So I mean, this is prime for public comment to address some of the things that Commissioner House has said.
I can't speak officially on behalf of the school board. I am also the author of Doylestown Borough's non-discrimination ordinance from 2010. So I am not representing the school district, but I can tell you a couple of things. One, public accommodations include schools. So any ordinance that includes public accommodations will by definition also include your public school. Lower Moreland happens to be different than some other municipalities in that your school district and your township are coterminous, which so really a township ordinance will govern the school district. I express no opinion on that, but I tell you that that's how the law would work. The other thing Commissioner Housen, is if an actual regulation is adopted, that will change the landscape a little. As of right now, the PHRC will accept complaints using the same reasoning that the Supreme Court used in reference to Title VII. That sex in our non-discrimination ordinance includes sexual orientation and gender identity. However, a new commission, a new governor, that's not a law, that's just an interpretation of the existing statute. If the statute isn't amended or the Pennsylvania Supreme Court does not render a decision like the US Supreme Court did, that will be subject to change depending on which administration is in place. And the only other thing I'll share with you based on my history with Doylestown Borough's HRC is I'm pretty sure they never got a complaint specifically around sexual orientation. However, they are still they meet regularly and they do a lot of outreach and education. So if you were to ask any of the HRC members from Doylestown Borough, what are you doing? They would say, we're talking to the business community and the landlord community regularly with our education efforts and outreach and all that. So those are just some observations. Title IX governs schools. Title IX is different from Title VII. And of course, having heard all this, I'm sure the school board directors and myself will be having a conversation about school district's own response to that. But it also include references to both school and community, which I heard. So, and finally, on a completely personal note, there is a queer prom in a couple of weeks. So if your kiddo is interested, they have my contact information. I will absolutely send you the information on that. It's totally free. There's still some tickets available. So if your little kiddo has any interest, just let me know.
Well, she's just turned 24.
Oh, okay.
She's not interested in not the flipper. But thank you, I appreciate that very much.
Is there, Chris, did you want to close out the board before you go to public comment?
Yeah, does anybody else on the board want to make a comment? Or are we guys ready to? If there are no other comments from the board, I'll open up to the public.
So do you have a protocol? Do you want them to come up here, identify themselves and?
Yeah, please come to the podium, say your
Name and
name, address, and say what you have to say. Yes.
Good evening. Judy Moss, Byberry Road, Ward 3. How many in this room love someone who identifies as LGBTQIA? Raise your hand. Those letters that Ruth read, if they were about someone you loved, would you not want to tell them in the simplest way possible with an ordinance, you belong in Lower Moreland, you're a citizen of Lower Moreland, and we stand with you? That's what that ordinance says to our children, to our young people, and to older people that have struggled with this all their lives. It is time that everyone who lives in Lower Moreland is belonging here and feel that they belong here. They don't. Those letters tell you those children don't feel like they belong here. We can do better. That ordinance is only the start.
Anybody else?
My name is Mary Jane Odener, and I live in Bernathen. 26. That's the first time I've ever come to something like this. It's quite interesting to see, and I really appreciate all of you and the work that you're doing on this level. I think from what I understand, as far as school and public areas and that sort of thing, I don't see a problem actually taking care of people who are in a marginalized community as the LGBTQAI+ community is. I mean, we've had our history where it was Asian Americans, they were Black Americans, Latinos, and of course, women who've all been marginalized. And right now, the LGBT community is now the target. I guess I feel like if we already have it established as an ordinance that protects them, that if something were to go forward, it actually shines light on it. Just like back in the day of the civil rights movement, it was the fact that Martin Luther King was an advocate of peaceful protesting that showed the ugliness that came out to those who were Black. And I think that if we had this ordinance, and if something were to happen, and we don't know, yes, we are about to have an election in the midterms, and it's going to change things in a couple of months. And for me, it's very scary because I do have children. I don't know if you know, Chris, I don't know if you were in my class tonight. No, okay. I couldn't figure out who you were, even though people, I did have people who said, is she your wife or mother? Like, no, I have 6 kids and none of them are Christopher, but nice to meet you, Christopher. We're others. Everybody thinks we're Bernap and everybody knows everybody. We actually don't know each other. So I think it would be important to go ahead and go forward with that, even though it seems like it might be redundant, is that we protect and we say that we're protecting people right here on the local level, as we know. It's just so important. So I have 6 children, and I believe 4 or 5 of them. I have 2 here with me. And then I have a non-binary, a gay daughter, trans daughter. What else do I have? Sorry. So I care, and I'm glad to hear that that hasn't happened yet, but we know that the atmosphere of today's, political and just, I once told a story to someone, well, I've told it a lot, but anyway, I'll just try to say it briefly. I actually came from the South, and when I moved from Jacksonville, Florida to Columbia, South Carolina, I was about 5 or 6 years old. The thing that the kids asked me at that time, and this is 1965, gotta figure out how old I am. They asked me, are you a Yankee or are you a rebel? Now, I know people in the North here don't think about that. And one day I finally realized, I thought, I didn't know what that was because I was 5 years old. I knew what the pressure was. I knew what they wanted me to say, but I knew what they described was not who my mother had taught me to be and who I was. Anyway, the point is that I realized when I was 5 years old, the Civil War had just been over for just 100 years. Now, 100 years as a kid seemed like a long time ago. And now that I'm 62, it doesn't seem so long ago. I mean, that amount of time, right? As some of us are a little bit older, realize it's not another. And so we know why all this stuff that is happening in our community. And right now, we have stuff happening to Asian Americans. We have things happening to Black Americans. I mean, we know this. People are like, but this is who we are. But it is been who we are, or how some of us have been. And I think it's our duty as human beings, especially those who have power, to take care and protect those who don't. And right now, the LGBT community is our marginal community that we need to protect. So I hope you take and actually make it an ordinance to protect, and hopefully even go further. And I'm glad to hear that it includes the schools. Because that's what I want to say.
Can we go to the woman Ruth wanted to?
Joanne,
There are 2. Elle Schreiber had her hand up first, but
that's Lori Schreiber. That's the inappropriate person to go to, actually. You guys probably know of Lori, so. Hi, Lori.
okay, so go to Lori first.
I think I'm unmuted, right? So, I'm going to kick it back to Joanne. Can you hear me? I'm getting a message here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So hello to my fellow commissioners there. I'm an Abington Township Commissioner, and we passed our non-discrimination ordinance exactly 10 years ago, 2012. And I'm here tonight to support you and your community in also passing a non-discrimination ordinance. I know the scope of yours is a little bit different than ours. Over the years, we've actually changed ours slightly to expand it and make it even bigger. And Joanne can talk more about that when she's recognized next. But I have to tell you that in the last 10 years, well, I've been a commissioner for 16 years, and passing the non-discrimination ordinance is probably, if not the best thing we ever did, it's pretty close. it's one of the things, sponsoring that ordinance is one of the things I'm most proud of. I think it gives a message to our community, and I've had many people come to me after we passed it and thank me. As one of your speakers said, it shows vulnerable community of people that they are getting the support of those around them. And I think Joanne's going to talk more about the part that was brought up about the state, because there's I'm not quite sure that the state, even if they did pass it, is going to do everything that you think it's going to do. But I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Our ordinance does have an HRC, but we do not have hearings. And most, as far as I know, in Montgomery County, do not have that judicial part, the hearings. Lower Merion, I believe, does. There may be one or two others that do, but mostly it is mediation. We have a group of mediators that are trained mediators. And so the hearing part of it, again, Joanne can talk to this better as she's the chair of the committee. But so that part that about the other places having hearings or not having hearings, that is the part that would get potentially costly. So we do not have that in ours either. Ours is a mediation format, but it is a group. We have a committee that does the that, and not just one person as you do in the one that you wrote up. Anyway, I just really wanted to say that I thought the comments made before me were excellent. I think Ruth did a good job, even though we talked about, or she talked about the letters about the bullying, the message to both kids and their parents, as she pointed out, to know that this ordinance, even if there is never any mediation that's ever done, the message of support and the feeling that comes with that, the goodwill that comes with that, is invaluable. So with that, again, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them about our experiences. But otherwise, if you would have Joanne speak next, I think that would probably be in your best interest too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Joanne Kleiner. I am the chair of the Abington Township Human Relations Commission. I've been the chair basically since we were formed. We are a 7-member commission. And as Lori said, our ordinance was passed in 2012. At that time, a number of local municipalities were passing ordinances in response to the fact that there was no protection under federal or state law for the LGBTQ community. So in order to kind of remedy that deficit, individual municipalities have passed their own ordinances. Even today, there is no federal law protecting that community, and there is no state law. Now, it is correct that there was a Supreme Court decision that was sort of a carve out for LGBTQ rights under gender discrimination. But there is no overriding federal legislation, and there is no overriding state legislation. As far as the Attorney General accepting complaints, that's fine, but this is something new, and I would call it almost experimental, because anyone who was brought in as a defendant on those complaints, I would imagine their first step would be to challenge the validity of the complaint being accepted in court, because there is no legislation in Pennsylvania. And I do not believe that it's been tested in court yet. We have mediation as a remedy. There are, as far as I know, just a couple of jurisdictions that actually have hearings. Lower Merion is the primary one. Excuse me. I believe that Cheltenham does as well. But in addition to the mediation, what it does for someone who has a complaint is that if the mediation does not succeed in a resolution, that person then has the ability to go and file suit in Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. No one can just walk in off the street and file a complaint in Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas on the basis of LGBTQ discrimination, because there is no law saying that that's not permitted. So this gives people the ability to actually go into court and litigate it. I would also tell you that it is true, we have not had any complaints, as have most of the other local HRCs. Lower Merion, I believe, has, and actually one of the ones that they had was racial discrimination. But we have had no complaints, but what your speakers said very eloquently is absolutely correct. And I really believe this is why these ordinances were passed to begin with, which is that it's a statement to the community. It's a statement to the community of your values as a community and what you accept and what you, and most of all, what you do not accept. And it's a very powerful statement. When we were formed as a commission, the first thing that we did was draft a mission statement. And part of our mission statement says that it is the goal of our commission that everyone who lives, works, and visits Abington Township is treated equally and with dignity and respect. And that's basically what your ordinance tells the world, that that's your philosophy as well, and that's what you believe. We also, as to the issue of costs, we were specifically not given a budget when the ordinance was passed. Some of the commissioners felt that they didn't want to use taxpayer money and they didn't want us to cost the township any money. So it was very specific that we did not have a budget. And to this day, we do not have a budget, but we have money because we have had organizations that appreciate the work that we do, and they have given us grants and gifts over the years. So just to finish up, and I'm happy to answer any questions, even though we haven't had any complaints, we're very busy. We meet regularly once a month. To the best of my knowledge, most of the other local HRCs meet once a month regularly as well. We do a lot of education and community outreach. And the feedback that we get is that it has really improved our community, and that Abington is very proud to have both the ordinance and our Human Relations Commission. So don't think that the only thing that we do is mediate complaints, because our philosophy from the beginning was we'd like to head off having complaints. We don't want to be a body that just handles complaints. And so we took it upon ourselves to be proactive and go out and do outreach and community education. And it's worked out very, very well for us. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Any questions from the board? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from people in attendance?
I'm Carrie Gavon and I live in Ward 4 on Buck Road. I've heard a lot of really positive reasons why this should be done. I want to thank Judy Moss. You had everybody show by a show of hands who knows someone or loves somebody who happens to be a member of the LGBTQ+ community, and lots of hands went up. We have in front of us on this board people who are representing your neighborhoods, your communities, the township, and we know that we have a diverse population. There's no reason not to do this. This makes everybody feel good and welcome. And just by making this statement, you just like reassure people that you don't condone discrimination. I've heard some people say it's redundant. To say that you're against discrimination, that's something you could be able to chant all day, every day. Like you can't say that enough. The only reason not to do this is because you feel maybe the state might say something similar, like who cares? We can say it ourselves. On a local level, you have an opportunity to resolve issues before they go like over your head, so that's a good thing. And that's what you're elected to do. So I see nothing but positive, positive, positive. It's free, makes people feel good, sends a positive message. Even if it covers the school, that's a good thing, right? Because we want the children in our schools to feel emotionally safe. So like, why wouldn't we do this? So I see nothing but positives all around. So thank you very much, Ruth, for bringing this, for just really pushing it. And thank you for everybody who spoke about it, all the positive ways that it's been received by constituents in Abington, the way it's strengthened other communities. It'd be a good thing to do that here. So I think, I mean, even I look at the flag behind us, like what does it represent to you? You know? For everybody living in our community, they just have a right to feel like they belong here. So if we can't do this, the flag doesn't belong in here. This is the core of who we are. We're just saying we're not going to discriminate. Say that all day, every day. Can I hear everybody say, like, we don't want to discriminate?
You don't want to discriminate.
We don't want to discriminate.
You don't want to discriminate.
Like, how many times is redundant? This makes sense. It makes sense for absolutely everybody. It makes sense all day long. It made sense 10 years ago in Abington. So to do this, we're not doing anything radical, right? We're just saying to people that you belong here, you're welcome here. We're not going to treat you badly, even if you don't agree with someone's lifestyle. Looking at the flag, think about it. Even if you don't agree, they have a right to be. And that's what we're saying. Thank you.
Anybody else in the crowd here?
Saji Matthew, Ramage Run in Ward 4. I'm an internal auditor by profession. So one of the things that we do, a core thing that we do is we go and evaluate the process and see if policy is in place. So when I hear that this ordinance isn't even in place, I would call that as an exception. We'd raise that to the, the powers that be. And we'd ask for an action plan to be put in place that's acceptable, that covers all the risks. And one of the things I want to see is, from what I hear, if you put this ordinance into place, you take care and you kind of take care of those risks that could possibly be there. It's a no cost solution to something. And again, it's not really a solution. It's something that you like to put into place. You'd rather be proactive than reactive. So again, just personal feeling, just from what I've done most of my professional career, setting up a policy is better than not having it and worrying about the ramifications subsequent to that. As you can see, I'm a minority, and as a parent to 2 children in this school district and in this township, I want my children to feel welcome, to feel proud that they live in an inclusive community. So I think if they hear that, and if all their friends hear that, I think it's a good thing for them. It gives them confidence, it gives them motivation. Again, it's just something that maybe more of the minorities and the people in the marginalized communities will feel more than others. So I think it's something personally that affects me, for many in this room and for many in this town. I think we should pass that, again, as a no cost, no high risk situation here. Again, I've heard that there haven't been that many cases brought up in other places or even here. But again, I agree, that doesn't mean that doesn't happen. It's just people are afraid. People don't want to take that extra step because it's a scary thing for people to do. So I just encourage people to pass this ordinance, for you guys to pass this ordinance, and to think of our community and our township at the same time.
Anyone else in attendance? Do anybody else online that would like to comment?
I don't see any.
Commissioner? You wanna move to the next level?
All right, so first I'd like to thank everybody who commented here today. I know that this is a very hot button issue in today's society. Being this, I'm the chair of this committee, so I probably have a little bit more of a need to speak here. So one thing I do want to say is, obviously, I don't fall into any one of the categories that is listed here. So I try to reach out to some people who are. So I spoke to two friends who were gay, and I spoke to another friend who was minority, and all three of them did not want this to go through. So there is a lot that we are weighing here. I just want to, we're taking everything you're saying into consideration, but we have to represent everybody and consider all these things in light of the thing with the Attorney General's office. I became aware of that today. I think some other commissioners became aware of it today as well. I feel like we need to look into that and find out how that is going to possibly affect the ordinance, how things will fall in line, looking at specifically what they may be taking on and what our ordinance covers. My suggestion is to simply table this so that we can evaluate the Attorney General's statement, find out what they are doing, what their plan is, and then come back to this. So that if I were to make a motion, it'd be to table it so we could study that. If somebody else wants to make a motion.
Do you want to put a duration on that? Sure.
Do we want to table it for, is 30 days enough time? Is
No,
You're
that
gonna
doesn't
have
make
to-
any sense.
Public comments over. You're gonna have to re-advertise the ordinance.
Yeah.
So. if
Even
you're
if we don't
gonna
change
table
it?
Pardon me?
Even if we don't change anything in the ordinance?
I would re-advertise it because it's been left open for several months now. I mean, it's, that's easy enough to do. But if the board wants me to look into what's going on with the Attorney General's office, and I would also look at what's going on with the state agency that is trying to change the definition to also accept complaints, because I was a little surprised at that. So that would probably, take 30 days for me to come back and just spell that out, what's going on with that. Some of the questions that came up tonight is whether or not if the state act got changed, which I don't think anybody believes the legislature is going to make those changes. Would there be some preemption? I mean, I can address that by answer without doing a whole lot of research. No, you can have local legislation. But I'm curious, what's going on with the Attorney General, and is one of the attorneys on the call pointed out that he or the next Attorney General may be taking complaints, but the issue of whether or not he can do that, no judge has ruled on that yet. That's an issue for somebody that gets hit with a complaint from his office, that gets litigated, and court, down the road decides that what he's doing, he cannot do, or can do. Could go either way. The other thing that came up when one of the speakers had to do with the mediation process in townships that have ordinances, that if it doesn't get solved, then that person who's unhappy, with a complaint, can go in the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. And I would think that the theory on that complaint would be that the respondent business or whoever has been accused is violating the township ordinance. That would be the only cause of action to go into Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. So when you create this ordinance, and if it doesn't get solved at the local level, and the person is still unsatisfied with the mediation process, they can go into Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas on the basis of the ordinance, giving them a cause of action. You don't have state law, you don't have federal. Now, I don't know, I'm curious whether anybody's done that. You know, I don't want to do it tonight, but I'm going to reach out to, you know, some folks that maybe know the answer to that. You know, whether anyone's taken a discrimination claim based on a violation of a local ordinance in Montgomery County, that should be easy enough to find out. But I can report that back too.
Would that have any impact on us, on the township, if they brought it to the Court of Common Pleas?
Well, it may. I mean, individual, you know, one of the issues that I've heard, Ruth, is that there's some concern that businesses will get targeted and there'll be lawsuits filed against local businesses. And
That's why I wanted to keep it small and local instead of going to lawsuits.
well, but if you have an ordinance which defines a discriminatory practice, and you have a mediation process, I think Joanne pointed this out tonight. If it doesn't get mediated, then what does that person whose complaint hasn't been solved, what does that person do?
Right.
Does
What
it-
they would have done initially, they probably would go to the court.
Well, but if there's no state law that protects LGBTQ, there's no federal law that does it. The only law on the books is this ordinance, and that's the basis, I believe, for, you know, someone then taking a complaint into county court. So I think that that's, you know, that's something that needs to be clear. You know, when you put an ordinance on the books, you know, we have ordinances that we enforce, you know, all the time in different municipalities. The violation of an ordinance is considered irreparable harm per se. It's sufficient to get an injunction. I mean, I've done a few of those over 35 years. So, you know, but I want to just confirm that that's what I heard today, and that's what this would involve if it gets put on the books. So there's a mediation for the townships that don't have a hearing board, and I'm familiar with Lower Merion and Cheltenham. We do some work in Cheltenham, and they have a more robust system there. But for anybody that has an ordinance on the books, it defines a discriminatory practice. If it doesn't get mediated, that person, I think, that's their cause of action to go into county court. There's no state law, there's no federal law. So I think I mean, you know, I don't want to, you know, beat this any longer, but I can certainly do that in 30 days and you know, give a report back to the board.
But you're saying even if Commissioner Oder puts 30 days on it, if it comes back to us, then we should still re-advertise?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think you need to, you can't, you know, it was continued to a date certain, and now we're not sure when the date certain is, but you need the information, you can bring it back. And then it would have to be re-advertised for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, you can continue.
So then, to get your report, when would you suggest we hold this until? Since we'll need to re-advertise, if we do that, when would you suggest that we table it until?
Well, I think what makes the most sense to me, when is the meeting in October, Chris? Is it the 13th, 14th?
Be a little earlier, the 11th.
So I can get information back to the board before the meeting, October 11th, and then, you know, if you want to address authorizing this to be re-advertised, and you could do it at that meeting in October. That would be the soonest. I think most of the information that, you know, has come up tonight that you're interested in, and I think some of the other commissioners are interested in, should be readily available, so that we know that there's something going on at the state level. We know what the Attorney General is doing. I mean, I don't know whether he's accepted any complaints or not. We don't know what the Human Rights Commission, whether they're even accepting any complaints at this point. So I want to call Carl and discuss this with him and get a little bit better insight of what's going on with that. Bring that back.
Send for the motion. Figure out how to phrase the motion then.
Well, I think you want to, the motion would be to table this for tonight. And to.
But I need to give a date certain on the.
And have this, no, but just have this as an agenda item for your next meeting in October.
Okay. Then I make a motion to table this for this evening with adding it as an agenda item to October's board meeting.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to table the ordinance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it. So the ordinance is tabled. Thank you.
Chairman and Commissioner Owner, and to the board, I just wanted to thank all of you. This isn't easy to come to a conclusion like this, but I do think it's important for us to get that information as we move forward. So, and I want to thank each and every one of you for all your hard work, because we've been committed to working on this. So thank you.
Okay, next is item N, review and consider local economic revitalization tax assistance ordinance. The Board of Commissioners authorized advertising the ordinance to extend the LRTA, which is the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Program, for another 5-year period at the July 12th, 2022 meeting. Solicitor Rice's office advertised the ordinance as prescribed by law, so it may be considered during this meeting. Any questions from the board?
Manager Huffman, could you explain what LRTA is to the public?
Yes. So this was an ordinance done by the board 5 years ago, which creates a tax abatement program for economic redevelopment projects. And it specifically has to do with the assessed value and then therefore the real estate tax that is collected off of that real estate value. So just for round numbers, the building currently has $1 million assessment, and then an improvement is made to that building that increases the assessment from $1 million to $4 million. It creates an abatement schedule for the $3 million difference over a 10-year period. And when this was done 5 years ago, there was a collaborative effort with the school district, with Montgomery County, and led by the Board of Commissioners, with the goal of spurring some economic redevelopment along the Philmont corridor. So the two projects which have utilized this program so far are the extra space storage at 2375 Philmont, and the currently under construction Arbor Square, probably going to be called Crescent Field, senior living facility at 2507. And the idea is to create some, I guess, initial funds within the pro forma for the budgeted project for the scale of improvements that are necessary. So if it's dramatic stormwater improvements, if it's regrading the floodplain area to move the building envelope, things that cost a lot of money to engineer and implement, that having this in place would then allow developers to pursue these projects. And then when you look at kind of the long game of it all, to have a significant improvement on the overall assessed value for the township, and therefore create some additional tax revenue in exchange for this upfront tax abatement program. So those are the two projects that it has been used for. There's two different schedules. One is standard, where 10% of the new assessment is taxed on an each year basis until year 10. And then there's a more aggressive enhanced LRTA schedule, which abates 100% of the new assessment for the first 6 years and then rolls in 20% over the final years of the abatement program, so that then they're paying the full real estate tax after the 10-year period. So that is how the program works.
And it had a sunset provision.
Yes, that is why that is here. The original ordinance was for 5 years, so this was going to expire this month. So the board had authorized advertising the ordinance to do an extension for another 5 years.
The terms of the ordinance aren't, I mean, what's on the books is not changed. It's just we're rolling it another 5 years. And it's for non-residential development.
That is a very good.
This is not for condos or.
So yeah, the entire premise was to make sure it did not impact any potential projects that would increase school enrollment and then therefore not generate the school tax necessary to educate those students. So it prioritizes only non-residential projects.
Industrial, commercial.
Yes.
Any other? No, sorry.
What if it's a 10-year tax abatement for the business for that difference?
Yes. So they still pay any of the other business taxes that are related if either people who live, say, in the senior living project, if they pay earned income tax, that would still be paid. But it's just specific to the real estate tax.
Real estate tax and school tax or both?
Both.
They pay no tax or they just only paid on the original?
They continue paying on the original assessed value before the improvements.
And then in the 11th year, it jumps to whatever it would be.
To the full value. So say in the example of the senior living project, that's the singular largest parcel in the eligible area. So that was the one that by itself was permitted to use the enhanced schedule. So they'll pay the original assessment for the first 6 years, and then the new assessed component will increase by 20% through
10.
As compared to the self-storage project being a smaller parcel. 10% of that assessment will get added every year to the tax bill.
Any other questions or comments on the board? Public? Alright. Then make a motion to approve ordinance number 765.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve ordinance 765 as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item is item O, review and consider police pension ordinance. Last month, the Board of Commissioners authorized advertising ordinance, which would amend the police pension plan in accordance with the recently approved collective bargaining agreement. The ordinance has been advertised and may be considered by the board. Any questions or comments from the board? From the public? Okay, without seeing any, I make a motion to approve ordinance number 766. Second.
It has been motioned and seconded to approve ordinance 766 as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next is item P, review zoning hearing board agenda and decisions. The zoning hearing board has one application for its September 15th, 2022 meeting. The application number 22-15 is the application of 3103 Philmont Holdings LLC, who seeks to expand a non-conforming use from the neighboring parcel, or the alternative seeks a use variance to permit the use of Arch Medical, which is currently located at the neighboring 3063 Philmont Avenue, and they're seeking to expand its medical device manufacturing use. The zoning hearing board made 3 decisions at their August hearing. Application number 22-12, the application of Richard Hall of 441 Pheasant Drive, who sought a variance to allow the reduction of the rear and side yard setbacks to permit an accessory building. The variance was granted. Application number 22-13, which was the application of Kevin Murphy of 41 Peyton Drive, who sought a variance to allow the reduction of the rear yard setback to permit construction of a deck. The variance was granted. And application number 22-14, the application of CSW Arbor Square B Huntington Valley LP of 2507 Philmont Avenue, which is a permit to seek a variance to exceed the permitted size of the sales trailer and to increase the permitted number of freestanding signs to 2. Both variances were granted. Additional conditions included that the maximum sign area of 20 square feet applies to each sign individually, and that the sales trailer will be removed within 30 days of the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the principal building. Then finally, item Q, my liaison report is for the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust. They just finished up a great summer of programs. They have some exciting stuff coming up in the fall. One thing that people complain about here is that we're losing our open space. They do a tremendous amount of work to preserve our open space. So I highly recommend joining the trust to take part in their activities and preserve our open space. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Under. The chair now recognizes Commissioner Pace, Chair of the Public Works Committee.
Thanks. Item R, review and consider 2019 Green Light Go Grant Bid Award. This is for the streets at Hunton Moreland, Hunton Old Welsh, Hunton Chestnut, Hunton Byberry, Vulcan Byberry, Terwood, and Fetters Mill. We got 5 bids. The bidder with the alternate items was Armored Sons Electric for $551,092.50. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right, I'd like to make a motion to award Armored Sons Electric Inc. the contract for $551,092.50.
Second. There's been a motion and second to award the contract with Armored Inc. as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Item S, Public Works, Steve.
I'll add a couple things to my report unless you have any questions. Our leaf schedule is out for our loose leaf collection, which will start towards the end of October. That's on the website. We every year about this time, we have to renew our winter services contract with PennDOT. It's also the time we get our salt bids back. Salt has increased by 16%. Wow, this year. So both we participate with the state contract and the local consortium. So both 171 a ton and 168 a ton. It's about a 16% increase over last year. We've been helping the school out with some of their storm pipe issues with the new high school, our sewer department, and myself have gone out there a couple of times to help them find, locate some old storm pipe that they're gonna hook it. That's about it, unless anyone has any questions.
Steve, could you talk about the trees?
Every year
And
we
what the-
participate with PHS, bury trees, we've done for years. There's a teacher at Pine Road, she piggybacks off of us every year too. She usually gets about 4 or 5 trees, which she wants to do this fall too. So I recommend that we get 10, it's about $600. And what I do is I try to replace anything we take down. We just had to take down any trees out of Ridgeway. So we'll put about 5 or 6 back in there, put about 3 or 4 over at Abigail, Lower Moreland Park. Just try to, whatever we take out, we try to replenish.
Is that due to the beetles?
Yep, emerald ash borer is still killing us. We have some oak disease problems now. And quite frankly, this Lower Moreland Park, the wooded grove that we have in there, it's just maturing out. So, and the trees that the township had originally planted 50 years ago around the edge, they're mature and dying off. So as we take them down, we try to at least replace one from one.
The work you did along the pike with the tree removal looks very nice.
Oh, thank you very much. And we'll continue that. I actually have Pico. They're gonna try to work with us with 2 more of the big oak trees there, because no tree company they're not allowed to get anywhere close to the wire, so.
Is that the one that's still standing there?
Yeah, there's a couple more.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item W, liaison position, historical architectural review board. There were no new applications to review. That's it for my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Pace. The chair now recognizes Commissioner Canali, Chair of Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Sir. First item on my agenda for tonight is the LMPD accreditation consultant. Police Department continues its preparation for the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission accreditation process. Much of the work is being handled internally. However, the department received a federal grant to offset the cost of using a consultant to guide the process. Chief Scarrato interviewed multiple firms and is recommending we proceed with a Law Enforcement Accreditation Services LLC. Their proposal fits within the grant scope and award. Billing will be handled on an hourly basis at the rate of $100 an hour with a maximum annual cap of $7,500. Looking to do a motion on this. Any question from the board first? Anything from the public?
What was the cap?
$7,500 per year.
Thank you.
And that's
Chief,
a grant amount.
matching up to the grant amount, I believe. Am I correct on that, Chief?
Yeah, so we have enough funding to cover this year's cost left in the grant. It was a $12,000 grant that we received. We used some of the funding with a different firm. We found a firm that's kind of more closely aligned with our internal staff that's doing the work. So we just thought it was best to make the switch now. We have a target date of being accredited by May to June of next year. So we're on pace to be there.
Sounds good. Any questions from the public in person or online? Nope. All right, looking for a motion to approve the Lisa proposal as described.
Second.
The motion to, and second to approve the Lisa proposal as described. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Chief, you're up for your report.
Okay, for the police department report from August of this year, Lower Moreland Police investigated and arrested a male for aggravated assault, strangulation, simple assault, recklessly endangering, unlawful restraint and harassment. We had several other harassment cases this past month, which kind of in light of some of the discussion today, I wanted to make sure everyone understood that actions of harassment, public harassment will not be tolerated in our community. People that feel they're being harassed can report it to Lower Moreland Police. We'll investigate it. If it meets the threshold for a crime, I assure you we'll take action. In light of some of the stories that I heard earlier tonight. In addition, we're reminded our residents, we've had ongoing complaints about dog fights, barking dogs, dogs at large. Our officers did charge a female with failure to confine a dog and harboring a dangerous dog in the last month. We also filed charges for barking dog complaints. So if neighbors are having problems with neighbors with not controlling their dogs, letting them at large, they can call the police and we'll respond and investigate it. In addition, we had a significant amount of arrests over the past month related to drugs and alcohol. Probably the best way to quantify that would be our DUI checkpoint. Commissioner Housen attended. It was a regional checkpoint with departments from all over eastern Montgomery County. And in the course of 5 hours, we had 15 arrests, 5 DUI drunk arrests, 5 DUI drug arrests. We had an arrest for possession of a weapon, multiple drug arrests. All those charges are being filed. It was a very busy night, and we're glad to get those people off of the street. We had a case update on an accident with injuries. Officers dispatched to a vehicle accident at Byberg Road and Huntington Pike. Multiple witnesses saw a vehicle entering the intersection against a steady red light, striking another vehicle. Adult female was arrested, charged with aggravated assault by vehicle while DUI, recklessly endangering another person, DUI, drug possession, underage possession of alcohol, reckless driving, other charges. So that's the reason that we're out here doing these programs. We also participated in a Nighthawk program, which is a mobile roving DUI patrol. So we're doing everything in our power to get impaired drivers off our roads, and we're going to continue to do that. The news is still up there, and I see that Last month, our intern program put together an educational video about a TikTok challenge that involved people stealing and taking for joyrides, Hyundais and Kias, through a technology issue in their design. And our video wound up being aired on both 6 ABC and Fox 29. So we appreciate them getting that information out. And just one last thing, there was a little bit of a social media post. We just added our second canine. The canine's name is Thor. He's from the Penn Vet Working Dog Group. I had the honor of being at the Penn Vet 10-year anniversary, which was held on 9/11 for the creation of this working group. This is the second canine that we've received through that group. Commissioner Hausman was asking me about the funding and just so everyone understands, the program's been fully funded by grants and public donations. We have received well over $125,000 in grants and public donations. And the program is currently funded through 2024. If we didn't get another penny between now and then, we'd still have it fully funded. So I'm really proud of the program. I'm glad it paid off like I said it was going. So that was a good outcome.
Because that conversation would have been awkward.
That would have been very awkward. Yes, that's a better explanation. But if anyone has any questions.
I just want to say that the DUI checkpoint was an amazing thing to watch. If you get a chance to go on, it's pretty cool. It's not as simple as you would think, and
No, it's a major event.
yes, it really is.
We probably had like 25 to 30 officers from all over the county on Philmont Avenue, so it was a significant event.
Yeah, and there was only one person I knew.
Yes, that was good. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chief. Fire Marshal Shell.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you? Just three notable fires or response calls from the fire department. On August 4th, we went to the ProMedica skilled nursing on Huntington Pike. They had a busted sprinkler pipe, which possibly leaked in some electrical devices. The officer in charge upgraded to a full box assignment, brought in more apparatus. The building was secured and it was turned over to nursing staff. On Thursday, the 18th, the Huntington Valley Fire Company, we assisted police at the Memorial Park Cemetery on Byberry Road. And on the 31st, we had a major gas leak on heat and public roads. The PICO supervisor asked the fire department to back them up as they secured the line and the leak, and that was repaired during the day. As far as emergency management, Rich Worthington has started the active shooter and shooter classes. He did the first one at Valley Christian. Outstanding participation from all the staff and the teachers, and we'll be doing updated classes as we go. I've been working with the Turnpike Commission as they've changed the key to the gate, the Heaton Road gate. So I'm in communication with them to get it's a new card system. So hopefully we'll have one located in a police car and one located at the Public Works building. As far as the county, I just got notice that they will be starting again the flu vaccine and the COVID booster. So as more information comes down, I'll be sending that out. And we're working with St. Mary's Church on a consecration for their church in September. And UNOs are up. I'm out there doing those inspections. And otherwise, we're in pretty good shape. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Nothing from the commissioners, anything from the public.
Right, I can just say one thing. The gas leak was my guys. There was a mismarked gas line. We actually dug up the gas line. And I do want to thank Bob and the fire company. I mean, they were there like that. To hit a 4-inch line, and you know, I could hear it. It was in front of the shop, and I could hear it in my office and smell it. So the way that they responded right away at Pico was good. And my guys followed their training right away, turned the machine off, ran away from it, called 911, called me.
It's a very high stakes training program.
Yeah. So, it all turned out well.
Good. Nothing else from the public. Thank you, Fire Marshal Shelley.
Thank you.
Next meeting, my liaison reports. I attended the library board meeting via Zoom this month. Good information. They had their busiest month ever for the library, and that's not just post-COVID ever. So it's being well used and well utilized. Great programs going on there. Denise already covered the movie night coming up on the 15th. And there is another event coming up, I believe, on the 17th. Yes. The 17th, yeah.
Yes.
I just need to verify that is the correct date. Yes, I believe the 17th, and it'll be on the library website. Regarding HVAA, fall sports are underway. I know there's still work to be done with dugouts. You're working with HVAA on that, I think, for the fencing.
Yeah, but I think that they nailed down what they want to do with dugouts, and I think that as soon as we get a plan, we'll move forward.
Perfect. And kids are having a good time on the fields. That's all I have. Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Canali. The chair now recognizes Commissioner Howard, Chair of the Public Property Committee.
I have no report in my liaison will be meeting next month. So I will have a report after that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Housen. That completes our agenda items. Now we'll open up the public participation for any non-agenda items from tonight. Sir, come up and give your name and address for the record for the board.
Sure. My name is Larry Van Pfeiffer. I'm in Ward 5, 1386 Holt Road. I have a question about the Pico upgrades that are happening in the neighborhood. The easement, I thought for utilities was 10 feet from the curb. I talked to Pico, they said that they reached out to, I don't know, Public Works or the commission, and they're telling them that they have approval for up to 15 feet. We live where anybody drives through that neighborhood, those cables are in some places 20 feet onto people's property. And I happen to be the lucky recipient. I happen to have a, I don't know what they call it. The transformer, thank you, on my property that is getting replaced with a 40 by 30 inch box that's going to go on the front of my lawn. Super happy about that. And on top of that, the gentleman that I spoke to told me it might be 2 years before they complete that, where they actually have enough boxes to do it. So I guess the question is, are the cables going to be sticking out of the ground for 2 years that they're installing? And I'm about 3 or 4 days from them starting to rip up my lawn. So I don't know if you guys have driven through the Justa Farm neighborhood, but you might want to take a breeze through. It is a hot mess.
Manager, do you have any advice for him? As far as
I've sent emails. I had emails with Kathleen from Pico, who had their field manager reach out to me by cell phone, which was nice. I talked to the guy. I'm working from home now, so I've noticed all this going on as they nicely spray painted my sidewalks and street this morning. That particular gentleman I met with last week in front of my house, that's how I got the information that it might be 2 years before I actually see the box on my property. So I've made a little bit of an impression with him that I'm looking for it to at least be put back the way it was. But my concern is I was under the impression, because I had a property line dispute with a neighbor, I had the property survey, the guy who came out was somebody that was recommended by the township, great guy, marked my property out, spent almost the entire day doing there, and explained to me that the easement for utilities was 10 feet. Well, now they're gonna be 20 feet onto the property.
Here's Steve and Chris and I, Tim Woodrow, the township engineer, were talking about this afternoon by email.
Okay.
I don't know how it got on the property to begin with, but normally they can work in the right of way. So the right of way is going to be so many feet from the center line of the road. It might be 16.5 feet, but it depends on the road. It might be more than that. So it's not necessarily from the curb line. It's, if it's a 50-foot right of way, the cartway is probably what, Steve?
Is that certain streets are different? If you have Rhodes Drive, it's a 60-foot right of way. It's a 32-foot cartway. So basically 16 feet to face the curb. So they have another 14 feet a piece of curb back on, so it's.
So they're not even anywhere in the ballpark of 14 feet.
Well, the ones I measure on roads they're slightly over, but they are over yet.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't, be outside of the legal right of way unless they have some permission from the Public Utility Commission, because they're regulated, PICO, Aqua, these private utilities are regulated by the PUC, and sometimes they get approvals to go beyond that, but I mean, I would take the position with them, you're on private property, get off.
So having said that, when I was
Unless-
talking, there was another gentleman that was out from the township, the sewer lines or something, they were doing something, and I just happened to have a chat with him. He explained to me that about a week or two ago, I'm sure you probably answered this, they had to call the police out for a neighbor that was losing his mind about what PICO was doing on the front of their property.
Well, the one thing that we talked about, PICO has a rep for Bucks and Montgomery County.
So just Montgomery. So they have individual reps on a pre-county
Counties.
basis.
So I think,
Reached out.
we
So
need to reach
It
out
would
to
be
them.
different than, but ultimately this process, while we can get involved in being an advocate, I'm going to pass this on to a woman named Suzanne, who is then going to contact Kathleen and have Kathleen reach out.
Okay.
So it's redundant, but I
Yeah, that's
think
fine.
it'll
It's
reiterate
just-
the importance of.
I mean, in light of what has happened earlier here today for some other people, I think this is a little selfish on my part, but at the same time, I do enjoy my property. And as I've seen what they've done to some of the other properties down the street, I'm not gonna be super crazy about it. I mean, where the kids' bus stop is, I'm looking at like a 2-foot section of line out, and I can see the bump in the property because it's not deep enough.
Yeah, this unfortunately is nothing we regulate, but we can certainly be your advocate and provide you with the resources, so.
I appreciate that.
Can you remind me your specific number address?
1386.
And you
I'm
should.
on- And I'm on the corner, so I know that it's going to be a train wreck. Because I've seen all the other corners and they have giant holes dug out and 3 and 4 cable lines sticking out of them. I mean, I don't know how long it's gonna be that way, but it doesn't look, it's not overly attractive.
We can find out what those duration is. I know that sounds kind of long. I know Ward 2 just had theirs done when I was about an 8-month project. I know some of that.
And they have like the initial kind of running of the new lines, and then there's typically a pretty substantial gap between the completion of kind of that active work and when they come back to do the restoration. And we do encourage anybody who does not think that the restoration is done up to a standard that works for them. Same deal, let us know, we will be the advocate to pass it on to Suzanne, and then we'll hear from Kathleen.
But the other thing, there's a little bit of self-help you might be able to do. You go to the Public Utility Commission website.
Okay.
They will take consumer complaints.
Great.
About PICO, any of these private utilities that they regulate. There's a consumer advocate office with the PUC.
Okay.
So, but I would describe it in detail.
No problem.
As much as possible. You're at home, send photographs, they, then if they put heat on them, then that's helpful.
I mean, the nice thing is the guy who was running it, I mean, we've built a little bit of rapport and he's assured me that he'll do a great job, but
It is rough in the beginning.
Listen, I'm sure that it is, but I just,
We make sure that they restore it.
I made a point because I've had several issues with Comcast over the years. That I've had members here, including our president, get involved with that finally got resolved, even though they decided that to run my other neighbors right through my yard. That was great too. But, so I'm just trying to avoid that moving forward. It's not the greatest of things to deal with, but okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sir, you should never feel embarrassed about coming to us for quality of life.
Any other public comment for non-agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I would like to make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn, and second, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, thank you.